Hi, and welcome to this 15 minutes live. Today, I want to talk about common sense. And it is just shocking to me, how many people in the world lack common sense. Now, I think I'm more looking at getting answers from you guys as to why is that the case that so many people in the world is lacking in common sense. Now, the answers that I'm looking for is common sense, a perception of the perceiver. For instance, in my opinion, it is shocking to me how many people in the world are lacking common sense. Now, is that my perspective? Is it subjective to what I perceive, or is it in general that people are lacking common sense, or is it just the way I see things? And that's what I'm wrestling at the moment. To me personally, it's shocking how many people are lacking in common sense. And so I don't know if this is shared by many others, that they can see the lack of common sense, or is it just if someone stands next to me, will we perceive the same situation or the same events differently? And would the person next to me not see the lack of common sense where I'm seeing it? So is it subjective to how I see things? Is it subject to my knowledge and experience? But it's just shocking to me how many people in the world lack in common sense. Now, common sense, I don't know, and you guys need to help me out. Are we born with common sense? Is common sense cultural dependent? Does it depend where you grow up, how you grow up? Is it dependent on the number of books you read? Is common sense, can you learn common sense? Is it based on experience? Can you learn common sense? Is it based on values in the community you live? Is it based on the values? Or is common sense just a universal ability that people have? And if it's a universal ability, a shared universal ability, why is it that so many people lack this ability? Why is it that so many people have a lack of common sense? Now, there's a saying that I grew up with, or I knew about since a very, very young age, is that there is no substitute for common sense. There is nothing in this world that can substitute common sense. There's no substitute for it. You can be educated and not have common sense. In fact, I find that many educated people lack common sense. You can be uneducated, ill-experienced, and still lack common sense. And it's shocking how many people. But I must also say that I do, in my experience, and this is not fact, it's not the way the world is, but in my experience, I have noticed that common sense, the lack of common sense is more prevalent in certain ethnic groups, certain racial groups. The lack of common sense is more prevalent in certain tribes, or I won't say religions, but certain tribes, a type of people. So some people and a group of people, you can see that there's more lacking in a group of people, and unfortunately, this group of people. Okay, let me not go there. But yeah, common sense is more lacking in a certain group of people. And it might be cultural, it might be racial, but yeah, that's my opinion, that's my experience. And the question is, why is that? Now, coming back to what common sense is a universal ability. That's what I think. I don't know if we are born with this ability. I don't know if we learn this ability as we grow up. I don't know the environment we live in. Does it teach us this ability? But it's a shared and a universal ability. I don't know if it's a standard or is it a way of doing things, a way of thinking, but I know it's universal. And the question is, if it's a standard, do we all comply to that same standard? And if we do comply to that same standard, why are we not applying the sense that goes with that standard? So if you look at Wikipedia, Wikipedia identifies identifies common sense as a sound, practical judgment. So there's a judgment, a practical judgment that is applied, that is sound. And this sound practical judgment is applied to it's applied or concerns everyday matters. So a sound practical judgment concerning everyday matters. So things that happens every day, right? It's an applied sound and a practical judgment to things that matters of every day. And I'll give some examples. It goes further to define common sense as a basic ability in human beings, and basic ability, right? It is an ability that everyone should have, and it's the basic, it's the fundamental entry level ability, a basic ability to perceive when you take things in, and how you perceive. It's a basic ability to perceive and understand. When you perceive something, you need to process and understand it, and you need to make judgment, right? You need to make a sound judgment on a matter that is shared or that is common to nearly all people in this world. So I'll just read that again. It's a basic ability to perceive, understand, and to judge matters that are shared and common to nearly all people within the world. And I'll give you some examples. We're in the line to go through a toll gate, and cars are backing up. We need to go through the toll gate. And then one of the people within the vehicle get to the toll gate, boom, they either need to swipe their card or they need to pay cash so they can go through the toll gate. And at that point in time, they will either reach for their wallets, check if they've got the cash, see if they've got their cards with them. At that point in time, when they reach the gate, then only they start checking. And sometimes, yes, they do have spare coins, they do have cash, they pay, they go through, but they waste so much time because of that delayed reaction. Some of them only at that point in time figure out that they don't have their cards, they don't have cash, and now they hold up traffic. Now it's common sense to, while you're in the queue, to get yourself ready, get the cash out, get your card out. When you reach the gate, you can simply just pay or swipe your card for you to move through the gate. So it's common sense to prepare yourself before you actually reach. But many people are failing to do that. And that is just one example. I've got 100 and thousands other examples of what I've observed within people. And to me, this is a lack of common sense. Now, I don't think common sense has got anything to do with education, because you find that educated people are lacking common sense. Educated people, well-educated people are lacking common sense. I don't think common sense has got anything to do with experience, because experience is specific to a task or a specific matter. And experience is applied knowledge. Knowledge that you have gained through practicing, and you apply that knowledge. But common sense is not specific to a task. It's universal. It spreads across everything that we do. So I don't think it's got anything to do with experience. I don't think it's anything to do with knowledge and reading of books. Although all those things, education, reading of books, it improves your knowledge, it improves your understanding of things. But even with all that knowledge and understanding and all that information, the failure to apply that in a real life situation is a lack of common sense. You can have all the knowledge, you can have all the understanding, right? You can have all the education in the world, but if you fail to apply what you know in a situation, then that is a lack of common sense. Now, why are so many people lacking this common sense? Please help me out, people. It is really frustrating for me, and perhaps I don't know if it's also got something to do with people's stubbornness, or are people just not giving attention, or they're not worried about their actions, because some people are stubborn. Some people just feel like they will do it their way. Some people just feel like, and if we take the scenario at the toll gate, the person might just be stubborn and feel has a don't care attitude for the guys behind him. So it could be a stubbornness, it could be a don't care attitude, it could be wanting to do things your way, that we then perceive as a lack of common sense. So I don't know, how does your stubbornness link to your lack of common sense? But even so, if it's a choice you make, if it's a choice you make because you want to be stubborn, you want to have a don't care attitude, that choice not to care is a lack of common sense. That is a lack of common sense. So the question is, why is the lack of common sense driving you to do these things? So it's really frustrating, and I don't know how do we get people to apply more sense to what they are doing. Is there something that can be done? If you meet someone that is not applying common sense, and I try my level best, especially with the people that work for me. Now, you know, you can give them all the processes, you can teach them on the processes, you can make sure that they're upskilled, they know what to do. The thing that you cannot do is you cannot determine their attitude. Okay, which brings another question: has attitude got to do, is there a relationship between someone's attitude and the lack of common sense? So yeah, but sometimes I find my staff not applying common sense, because it's a simple case of, I know what to do, I know what the process is, I know what process to follow, I do have the skills, but then you find a certain point in the process where you have to apply common sense, and then I find they are lacking to apply a common sense, you know, because a process only works when everything that feeds the process is in place. But when you reach one place in the process where the information is not fed into the system, now you get stuck, you don't know what to do. But that's where common sense comes in. That is where common sense is applied. When the system, when there's a break in the system, you need to apply common sense to resolve the matter and for the process to continue. But I find my people lack common sense, and I constantly take them back and say, this is what went wrong, this is what you should have done, this is how you should have applied your knowledge to solve this problem. But I continuously finding myself having to teach people common sense. They're not taking the initiative to apply the sense. Thank you, people. That's my 15 minutes live, and goodbye.